Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Ethan, and we are always joined by Ethan Duffy. And of course, we are previewing the big clash this week, Carlton v West Coast at Marvel Stadium. To be a little bit sarcastic there, of course, it's not the biggest game that we've ever played this season, but of course, it's against West Coast. They're starting to get a few players back, but still, I think it should be no excuses this week. We should absolutely blow them out of the water. But, of course, it's round 19 this week, Saturday, 22nd of July, 2:10 at Marvel Stadium. Daffy boy, first things first, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Obviously, there's a good vibe around Carlton right now. It's probably a good game to head into after a massive scalp on the weekend against the Power. And obviously we're on a streak of wins, 50+ wins, and I think if this weekend we get 50+, I think it might be the first team ever to win 5 in a row by 50+. Yep. So that's going to be a pretty good effort. But for me, I just don't think we can get too ahead of ourselves. We've still got a job to do, and the job is to beat the Eagles this weekend. Yep,
completely spot on. Well said. So to throw it straight back to you, I know it's very quickly, and I know it's straight into the thick of things, but a favourite moment against West Coast. Is there one that comes to your head straight away? Maybe it was a few years ago. Maybe it was 6 weeks ago. Maybe it was 20 years ago when we weren't even alive, mate. Is there a favourite moment from your end against the West Coast Eagles?
Yeah, I think the Eagles and Carlton have had a bit of history, I think, in the last 2 decades, just due to the whole Judd trade, in my opinion. There's always been a talk with him and Josh Kennedy and all that kind of stuff. There's always been a connection, I think, with West Coast and Carlton because we've always had a lot of WA players. So, there's always that talk about maybe one of our players going there. Obviously, they've got Samo Seaton there who's lighting up the park each and every week, which is good to see. But for me, I'll start off with one little one. Just I think when Judd came to Carlton and the first game he played against the Eagles, I think it was in 08. I remember it clearly as a kid. I just remember he was copping it a fair bit down at Subiaco Oval, and he put on a show and we ended up winning that game. But one clear, in terms of moments, I think it'd probably be Menzel's goal in 2014 at Marvel.
The skipper, Mark Murphy, has 2 bounces. He kicks it inside 50, off hands. Here we go. Menzel! Goal! Carlton in front! Yes, when you mention the words gut running, that is it. He's almost fatigued himself to the point where he can't get the ball to spin correctly. And that gets over the congestion, over the traffic. It gets to Menzel and goals.
And yeah, that was a good win in a very mediocre year, which was 2014.
Yep, spot on. I know that's probably one of the moments that come to my mind. That was I think it was Eddie Maguire, wasn't it? And it was
yes.
Oh yeah, but that was great. Where we kind of thought that Troy Menzel was going to be the future of the Carlton Football Club. Of course, I didn't really come to fruition. But my favourite moment against West Coast, I know it's a bit cliche, but I think it's going to be Charlie Curnow's 9 goals against West Coast this year.
Yeah. He's at the top of the square, Curnow. He's wanting it desperately, leads into the pocket. Akers was going to go there. He decides instead to just give it some height. Send it. They're both down there. Curnow again!
Look at it, Jared. So look, Bazzo's doing lots of work off the ball here. He's pushing him. He's making life hard for him. That's really good work there. He's buffeting him. Curnow just says, no, I don't like it. I'm going to lead up. Okay, I'm doubling back to the goal square. Bazzo gets another touch around there, but it just doesn't finish the job. No. That's what it takes to play at the highest level. You do 99% of it right. You just don't finish it off. It's a good lesson. Bazzo at the back there. If your man goes, you have to go.
Directly in front for number 9. It's
I think his game against West Coast, I know that it was against a little bit of an underrated, not as many players who are playing for West Coast are their stars, and I know that their back line was a little bit depleted, but I just think that Charlie Curnow is still to kick 9 goals. I think he has to go into this week as well quite confident because, especially without Harry Mackay, that we'll touch on soon, he's now the main forward down there, and who knows, he could really light up Marvel Stadium. But to transition straight into the Harry Mackay injury, of course, he has a right knee injury. I think it is a meniscus injury, but of course, it's 6 to 8 weeks, which is a lengthy stint on the sidelines. But it's a little bit better because seeing that it's not as bad as a ACL injury, because we all know how serious the ACL injuries are. But also just to touch on Matt Owi's injury as well, he has a low-grade calf strain, which is 1 to 2 weeks out. Of course, that was all laid out last week. That, of course, brought in Jesse Motlop, which was good to see him return to the lineup. And just before I transition to you, Duffy Boy, Jordan Boyd's suspension. We tried to, I guess, appeal it to try and get the weeks down, or maybe get him to play this week. But of course, the weeks this week, the game this week, he's unavailable, and he's unavailable for the next 3 weeks, which is, of course, the suspension that we saw from Jordan Boyd. But out of those 2 injuries, Duffy Boy, and of course Jordan Boyd, which is, I know that the injury that you want to try and talk about a lot. What were your thoughts on these 2 injuries, but also the suspension?
Yeah, it's obviously disappointing off the top with Harry Mackay. I think he's been in top form in the last, month and a half, in my opinion. I think, considering he had to be fair, I just think it was a slow start. I don't think it was a slow start as a whole for him. I think it was more in front of the sticks. I think he was doing everything really, really well everywhere else. He was just not, getting the reward for what he does. So that's kind of what kind of frustrates me sometimes with, media and other team supporters, that they focus on his goal kicking, which obviously it's one of his major things, but he's definitely probably, in my opinion, probably the best forward in terms of around the ground in the league, because Jesus, like, what is he, 6'10", 6'9"? He's running around kicking goals and hitting targets. So it's a big out for us in terms of, have that extra option with Charlie down there, because that 1-2 punch is definitely dangerous down there. You don't really know how to pick them up. They're both so hard to defend, as we see every week. They get held majority of the time. So hope he goes well, and fingers crossed he's back soon. And maybe come September, if we are playing in the finals, he could be back. So we'll wait and see on that. And obviously Matt Owies has had kind of issues with his calf this year. Which is pretty much the games that he's missed is pretty much through the calf strain. I think he might have done a hammy earlier in the year against the Giants, but he's tends to have soft tissue injuries, only 1 to 2, which is okay. But hopefully he can get on top of those things, because personally, just for him, I know, those are frustrating injuries to have when you're out 1 to 2 weeks. You're back for a couple out. I guess you look at Jack Martin as exactly the same, and you look at the confidence he has in his body currently. And the way he's playing is showing the confidence in himself. So hopefully Matty's back soon, and, it really depends on the whole selection integrity in the next few weeks when he's back. And then obviously Jordan Boyd's suspension, 3 weeks. We were talking about it before we recorded. Probably a few more F-bombs dropped than I probably will drop here. But I don't know what's going on there. To be fair, I know they're trying to crack down on dangerous tackles, but, it's just no consistency, and it's getting out of hand for mine, in my opinion. It's, it's not even a 1 week. This is 3 weeks of a guy's year that he's missing for what? Not really sure why. He was tackling a guy who's going for goal. Bloke lands on his head, that's footy. And if he gets, it's unlucky he gets concussed. Obviously, we don't want him to get concussed. But I don't think he had those intentions.
No.
Personally, I don't think, you can see certain tackles when blokes have intentions of hurting the opponent, but that was more of just a chase down tackle, and the guy landed on his head and still had the shot for goal. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. But it's just the consistency for me, Pat. I'd imagine you'd agree too.
Yeah, no, completely spot on. There's nothing really I need to add with that. I just think that with the whole thing, it's very, they choose the injury with what is the outcome. Like, if the guy's injured, but with this one, it was kind of like more, it was just 3 weeks because of the action. But I'm like, well, put this action up against this action from 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. This guy gets off for nothing, and this guy gets 3 weeks. And it seems a little bit like you want to protect the high-profile players. So if one of those high-profile players was to do that, they would kind of protect that more than a kind of a lower name in Jordan Boyd. So you can kind of, I guess, drag Jordan Boyd through the mud in a sense so he can learn, but then the rest of the AFL can see his action. That's how I see it. And I'm like, that's just not how it's done. Because if the say if a Petrarca was to do that, the exact same action, we don't know, but maybe they might use the high profile player to not get him suspended, but then also the low profile player who does the exact same action, get him off for 3 weeks so he can learn, but the rest of the competition can learn. But I'm like, that's just not how it is. If you do the action, you get suspended. It's the exact same thing with Dustin Martin with the elbow. Like, I think it was AFL 360 when Robbo actually spoke about. He was saying that
it's dusty.
So on the weekend you are allowing the kids to go out there. So he was pretty much saying, kids, you go out there and you throw an elbow because apparently that's fine now in AFL, but it's not. It's not. We all know it's not. So that's the thing that like you want to. It's either you want to have the action allowed in the AFL or you don't want it in the AFL, and it's pretty simple. And with this, it was a simple tackle. And unfortunately, just the outcome was a little bit unlucky for Jordan Boyd. It was unlucky. But that's what people don't realize enough with this sport is at the end of the day, it's in contact sport. So there is injuries. And the players know that. The players know that. Yeah. They aren't walking in being like, have no idea what's going on. They know what's gonna let the risk that they're putting their bodies through. We know that as well. We played football as well. We know that. Yeah. So I know, just at the end of the day, I think with Boyd, it's a little bit stiff, but I know that I said at the start of it, I was kind of like saying, I don't really have much more to add on that, but I just want to leave it on for about 2 minutes. So we'll now move on now to the potential inclusions. We'll just touch on 3 names because they were probably the 3 names that are a test this week. So, of course, Adam Cerra has hamstring tightness and is a test this week. So that's kind of a touch and go sort of situation with Adam Cerra. Hopefully he gets up because he's so important to our midfield and to our side as well. But Zach Fisher, test from a hamstring. So that's a bit interesting to see what happens there, whether he plays. I don't think he will play in the seniors anytime soon. But the last name also is Mark Pitnet, and it's a week-to-week assessment. So right now he is a test, but I know that the Carlton Football Club is just kind of using his injury as a week-to-week assessment. So most weeks he will be a test, but it's pretty much just down to the last few days when the selection comes out. And it's pretty much if Mark Pitnet is fit to play, he plays. But to me, I think you need to bring him through the VFL. It doesn't matter if he's 100% fit. You need it. I think now it's a little bit too late to just bring him straight back in. I think he needs a few weeks in the VFL and really challenge TDK for his ruck spot. But out of those 3, and also just to transition to our ins and outs, David Boy, is there any of those 3 that I guess, consider might come in? I mean, I know that Cerra is 100% in if he is fit, but also Zach Fisher and Mark Pitnet. Is there any of those players that you might bring in for your ins and outs?
Yeah, obviously Ches is currently in the side, so I'll talk about that in the inclusions and the stuff like that. But yeah, with Fish and Pitto, personally, I don't see him coming in the side even when fit. I'm not entirely sure if Pitto will play many more games this year, to be fair. I'm liking the whole aspect of a modern day ruckman, in my opinion. I think he's going to have to earn his stripes in the twos. And me personally, I just don't know if he's it's hard because I like him, but it's just there's something about him that just doesn't, I'm not sold on him 100%. And I wasn't too sold on the 4-year deal either. So, it's an interesting one because we talk about it most weeks, but yeah, it's Pitto is just a different type of ruckman compared to TDK, and they bring different strengths. And then obviously Fish, I don't know if he can fit in currently. Maybe if a Fogg's out of form or someone's out of form, I'm not sure. But it's not looking unlikely that he's going to be in the side soon.
Yep. A question for Zach Fisher. Would you consider him as a sub? So maybe if Dow was to come into the side and there's a position available for the sub, say in a few weeks, because I think we both agree that Zach Fisher needs a few weeks in the VFL. But if there is no injuries and everyone's keeping up to form, would you consider Zach Fisher as a sub? Because he could be that zippy sort of player that you bring in the last quarter to get a little bit of life in the side, would you consider Zach Fisher as a sub?
Yeah, he's definitely one of those types of players. It really depends on how you look at it, because you go, do you want him getting full games in the twos and then playing full games in the ones, or do you want him playing in the sub as a sub and then coming in to the best 22 the next week, not playing a full game the week prior. So, yeah, I agree. I think he's one of those types that would be perfect for the sub, but currently I wouldn't mind him just, plying his trade in the twos.
Yep, well said. Just to try and earn his stripes back. So I completely agree with that. Okay, so now we'll move on now to, of course, the ins and outs. Daffy, I'll throw straight up to you. Out of those probably three now, I don't know if you would bring Zach Fisher or Pitto in, as we just mentioned, but ins and outs, who are you bringing in and who are you bringing out?
Yeah, so I'll go with outs first. I'll go, obviously, Harry Mackay with the injury, Boyd suspension. And just because he's touch and go, I think Adam Chera will be left out of the side this week. So he's firming to go against the Pies, which will be obviously a tough clash. Doesn't need a player this week. Not trying to be cocky or anything. I just don't think it's really the game we need to be pushing him. And we've got a push for the finals to make. We don't want to risk that. So ins for mine, more of a kind of, he's not like a Mackay replacement, but in terms of maybe he gets some ruck duty as well, I think it's going to be Lewis Young coming into the side, because I think he could definitely play it forward, in my opinion. He could definitely be that other forward, but also just be, maybe taking a little bit of ruck time off Sauce, because I think his forward work was superb last week, Jack. So I think we definitely need him up forward a little bit more, considering Harry Mackay's out. So I think Lewis Young fills that void currently, because I think he really probably didn't deserve to be dropped a few weeks ago, but it was just unlucky because TDK came in, which is a good problem to have. I think Paddy Dow comes in for Chera, in my opinion. I think he comes and plays a full game against the Eagles, has a crack there. And an interesting one for mine, I think I'm going to bring Caleb Marchbank into the side, and then maybe I think Kemp probably plays that kind of smaller defender. Or, I don't think Gov will. I think he's more of that intercept, but I think maybe Kempy can. I think he can. So, definitely for this week, I think he comes in for mine.
Yep, spot on. Well, the reason why, the viewers that, of course, watching on YouTube, you would have seen me kind of smile and shake my head a little bit after you said Marchbank, because I have the exact same ins and outs. So, outs I have. And just to make it clear to all the viewers out there, we don't know. We pretty much just go completely off our heads. We don't know. We don't let each other know who we're bringing in and who we're bringing out. But you know what they say, great minds think alike, mate. But outs, Harry Mackay, Jordan Boyd, Adam Chera, and ins, Lewis Young, Caleb Marchbank, Paddy Dow. So to touch on the sub then. So I don't know if you touch on the sub then, because this will be a little bit of an interesting chat. Who is your sub, Daffy Boy?
Yeah, it always comes kind of at the top of my head after I do my ins and outs. I think the sub's always a tough one, in my opinion. But for me, I think you have to have someone that can play a few roles. Yeah. And you just touched on it before. I'm actually just to name two guys. I know one of the guys we always have a little giggle about, but I think it's going to. I think when you talked about it before, I think it might be Zach Fisher as the sub. Yep. Just in terms of Dow's out, you get that midfielder kind of forward, small forward as the sub. But you could also have an Ed Curnow who can be that, midfield replacement. I know it's hard to say. I'm just saying, I think in terms of, maybe someone goes out with, Cripps might need a rest for the last quarter. You go, Ed Curnow goes in and plays that role, because it was kind of seamless, especially in that Fremantle game when Hewitt was the sub and Kennedy went out, and it was just seamless, and it didn't seem like Kennedy was out, which of course he was out. So I think for mine, it's just being able to replace a position that's needed, like an important position, I think, and then I think Fish and Ed could probably do the job.
Yeah, well, spot on. I know that those, as I kind of said, I just don't know if I want to see Ed back as a sub, but if he's a sub, I don't mind. Like, I don't want him in the side. I don't see the point of him playing in the side.
No, same. I agree.
Yeah, and then also now, if there's a few midfielders down, that's when you bring in Ed Curnow. That's when you bring him in. We have Candy and maybe Chera out. That's when you bring in Ed Curnow. And And that's why I think Paddy Dow would have to be in front of Curnow for Chera, because Dow and Chera are pretty much the exact same midfielders. So you bring Dow for Chera, let Chera have a week out. But I do agree with this sub, with having Zach Fisher or Ed Curnow as a sub, but mine's a little bit left field, and we haven't seen him since last year, but he had a really good game in the VFL. He had 32 touches alongside with Jackson Binns, but I'm going with Jack Carroll as a sub.
Carroll, okay.
So it's either, I think with me, it's either Jack Carroll will come in as the sub, or Jack Carroll will replace Chera and Paddy Dow will be the sub. Because I think Jack Carroll deserves a kind of a spot to come back into the side. And then now that there's an opening, I would like to see Jack Carroll come in. But also, if he's in as a sub, I would also like us to give him a go. Because either or, because with Paddy Dow, I think at the end of the day, I think we all know that unfortunately he's going to probably part way. He's probably going to part ways at the end of the year just because he needs another opportunity at another club. But Jack Carroll is that guy that we've kind of invested in a little bit. So I think we need to try and give him the credit where it's due. And if he's getting 32 touches and a goal, I think Jack Carroll might have to play. And I know that Jackson Binns is also the other guy that also had 32 touches and a goal, but I think you've got to reward Jack Carroll before Binns. I like how you're kind of giving Binns a little bit of a I know that he's worked so hard in the VFL, but also let him know that, mate, you're going to be our future. Let him develop in the VFL, let him dominate the VFL as he is. Like the stats don't lie, 32 touches and a goal last week, but Jack Carroll did the exact same. And I think Jack Carroll is the more mature body, and I think I would like to see him as a sub. So, of course, now we'll move into the ground overview. So we'll touch on each line. So we'll touch on the back line, midfield, rucks, and forward lines. So and then we'll touch on just a key matchup for each line. But to touch on first, Jacob Wiedering up against Oscar Allen. So I know that you've got a bit of news about Oscar Allen, Daffy Boy. But if this is the matchup, how do you think this matchup will end up? I guess, like at the end of the day, because Oscar Allen is such a great forward, this is going to be a very crucial matchup for the game.
Yeah. I think, like I've been saying every week, I think I trust Wiedering on whoever he's playing on. I thought he did his thing against the Power, taking some important marks and rebounding out of D50. So, but yeah, I think Oscar Allen's been their shining light this year, in my opinion. I think he's fifth in the Coleman or something like that, in a side that's barely kicking goals. So it's good to see that he's developing his game. But he definitely hurt his arm on the weekend. He did come back out and play, and obviously kicked a couple of goals because he's a star. But might have been a shoulder or something like that. That if I go Oscar Allen, he's avoided. I think he's avoided real damage, but. I think he'll play. They are confident he'll play, despite hurting his shoulder on Sunday yet. So, it is an important, matchup. But I think in terms of, I don't think we're an individual-based matchup type of defence. I think we can, we're a back six that work well together, whether it's, Newman flying or McGovern flying or whoever flying. It really works out well together, and I think we can get the job done.
Yeah, spot on. I completely agree. I think it's a big one for West Coast Eagles because I think you need to play Allen, even if he's a little bit underdone. I think if you go into the game and Allen's not playing and have like a darling on Wiedering, that's quite scary from there. And so I think they would almost rather just have Allen just play. And even if he's a little bit underdone, just make sure that he's out there because we all know how great of a player he is. But well said, Duff. So I think we'll now move on to the midfield. So it's a big one. Still a player that I think is very underrated. If he wasn't playing for such a shit side, I think he would still get a little bit more credit, which is, of course, Tim Kelly up against our skipper, Paddy Cripps. So this matchup, Daffy Boy, it's a big one because Kelly's had a pretty underrated season. I know that he's been playing for a pretty crap side. But how do you see this matchup coming I guess coming out, but also with the whole midfield as a whole, our midfield and their midfield, with a lot of their names back like a Yo, Shuey, and also a Gaff. Do you see kind of a big threat out of those midfielders?
No, simple as that. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I think Tim Kelly's very, very good on his day, but I think he's a bit of a passenger at times as well. I think he's a good player, but I think it's since he's come to the club, I think there's been a little bit of a struggle. Not his fault, but I think obviously they gave up a lot for him, and their midfield, I just don't think it covers well enough. And I'm just reading their injury report, and Elliot Yeo is out for 1 to 2 weeks, as well as McGovern for 1 to 2 weeks. So, and Ruben Jimby is out as well with a hammy. So,
so with McGovern, is his injury the concussion?
Yes, concussion 1 to 2.
Yep. So he came back on. That's interesting. Sorry, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. I was just reading through the injury list. Obviously, Oscar Allen is a test, like we said before. Jimby's out with a hamstring, who's been pretty solid this year in his first year. And McGovern's an odd one. Like you said, he obviously came back on, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe he got another hit. I'd imagine he's similar to his brother. He finds a way to get injured. So, with their midfield, obviously there's a big name out in Elliot Yeo, who I rate pretty highly, but he just can't get his body right. It's kind of been the story of their season, hasn't it? The Eagles. Obviously, we're not, focusing on the Eagles too much, but it's been a kind of a negative aspect to their season, which has a lot of negatives, unfortunately, for them. But I think our midfield can get it done with, Cripper, and I think he's the number 1 rated player in the last 5 weeks. So that's a good sign, and showing that he's really, once he's lifted, the team's lifted, which is good to see. And I think he'll continue those ways against his hometown side.
Yeah, well, actually well said, because I think that's something that we'll touch on quickly with Cripper is, I think round 14 was the week when I think ever since then he's been the highest rated player. And isn't it funny that as soon as we got our first win, it was round 14 against Gold Coast. I mean, our first win from this streak against Gold Coast, and he was the highest rated player on the ground. So, in the competition. So, I think it's good, and I think it just shows why he's so important to our side. Because, at the end of the day, he's our fucking captain. So if he's performing well, I think the whole team steps up. Okay, so now we'll move on now to, of course, the Rucks. We had a little bit of a giggle before to do with this, of course, matchup. So TDK, we expect him to keep his spot up against the star ruckman from the West Coast Eagles, Staffy boy, Bailey Williams. He's a bit of a key forward or a key defender turned into a ruckman because, of course, Nick Naitanui. Just to touch on Nick Naitanui, that is so bad to see, isn't it? He has not played in years, and I just feel quite sorry for him, because he's if he comes back in, West Coast is a better side, 110%. So just hopefully he can try and get his body right. But of course, this isn't West Coast Eagles chat. But Teddy K versus Bailey Williams, Staffy boy. What were your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I think obviously it's tough for the Eagles once again with injury to a key player. I think Nick Nat's probably almost done, in my opinion. I just don't think he's really been fit as just in terms of when he has been back, he has been not that fit coming back, in my opinion, at a level of AFL level, which has definitely hurt him in terms of injuries. That would have, so it's on him too, and a bit of lack of luck, I guess. So we with Teddy K and obviously Bailey Williams, who's 22, the oldest looking 22-year-old I've ever seen in my life. He's a year older than me, and he looks like he could be my uncle. So, clip that and chuck that on the TikTok, I reckon. But I think we've got to focus on our rucks, and that, whether that's Teddy K, Sauce, or even Lewis Young. Like I said, we're bringing in. So they've really got to put on a show and really dictate the middle of the ground, because I think we should be winning the battle, which we haven't been able to in the last few weeks. So. I think we'll get the job done, mate.
Yeah, spot on. Of course, with Bailey Williams, he's 22, and that's how old I am. So I don't know if I look like your happy boy, but I know that I get told that I look a little bit older than 22, but I know that I don't look like an uncle. So Bailey Williams, God, he's 22. That's pretty insane, isn't it? But I think this has to be a matchup that we have to dominate, right? I think it's going to be like especially at Marvel, very, very good track for us to just dominate.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll touch on our match predictions later on in the episode, but I think it's going to be a big percentage boost for our side. But I mean, of course, we still have to get the job done. So I will now move on to our last line, and of course, our last matchup, which is of course Charlie Curnow versus Barras. So I think even if McGovern is playing, I don't think. I mean, I know that he's not, but even if he was playing, I still think Barras would go to Curnow just because I think it's a little bit of a better matchup. And I feel like if McGovern was to play, he would probably go to a Silvani. But yeah, so Curnow v Barras, Daffy Boy. Barras is still quite a solid defender, but I think we should have the job done. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well, based on what round was it? Round 7, I think we played him. I think we were 4-2 at the time or something like that. But yeah, no, I think, Barras is obviously a premiership defender. And like I said, recording it, it's unbelievable how rock bottom they've got. The Eagles currently with the players they've got some, good players. And obviously they've picked up some young guys through the draft in Jimbies and all those types of players and Elijah Hewitt, and that they look pretty handy. So it's just very odd they've won one game, and I'm praying to God that their second one does not come this week. But yeah, I think Shannon Hearn took Charlie Curnow a little bit last time too, because I remember Charlie Curnow sat on his head in that mark. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's just a matter of keeping the pressure on when the ball gets inside, getting stoppages. We're not changing the way we play. It doesn't matter what opponent. We've got bottom West Coast and then top Collingwood next week. So you're going to have to be ready for that clash in terms of physicality, because you know what they bring. And that'll be a big clash. But yeah, I think it's going to be important for guys like Jack Martin to get on the board. Jack Silvani once again to get on the board, just to cover Harry Mackay in a sense. And obviously with McGovern out, that's probably a big out for them, because I think they'd probably have maybe, is it Rhett Bazzo or one of those types of players probably picking up, Jack Martin or Jack Silvani. So it's probably another day for Jack Silvani to get on the scoreboard. Yeah,
spot on. I've got to say, never heard of Bazzo in my life, so we don't know if that at the end that can't even speak. I'm sorry. All right, to the viewers and to the listeners, I'm a little bit sick, so I'm not speaking probably up to my 100%. But I don't think I've ever heard of Bazzo in my life. So hopefully that's a good sign for us at the end of the match that we absolutely dominate. But yeah, I think as you just said then, it's a big chance for the Smalls to kind of fill the void with Harry Mackay being out. And as you said then, I think Jack Silvani just has to keep playing this way, because he obviously had his chance last week. But even with Harry Mackay on, he kicked the first 2 goals of the game. So he started well in that sense, but of course he kicked 2 goals with Harry Mackay being out. So at the end of the day, he kicked 4 goals, and Jesse Motlop as well kicked 4 goals. So and I think Fogg and Cunners just have to keep on doing their thing, just pressure. And of course, if you have a chance to hit the scoreboard, you just absolutely nail the scoreboard, and you just take the game away from West Coast and don't give them any hope. Like, as soon as that opening bounce happens, you are red hot straight away. Like, you tell them that we are the Carlton Football Club. So to now touch on our last segment, which is, of course, match predictions. Daffy Boy, very quickly, I want your best on ground, your point of difference, and your winner plus margin.
Yep. I'm going to go for a forward half best on ground, because fingers crossed it's a game played in our half. I think it's going to be Jack Martin, who's slowly becoming one of my favourite players. Just the way he goes about, and he's an integral part of the team. Obviously been frustrated through injury for the last few years and his time at Carlton. So he looks confident in his body, touch wood. And hopefully he's raring to go on Saturday Arvo, and lets the Eagles know that he's back, baby. But I think point of difference. It's always an interesting topic, but I know he played last week, but I think Paddy Dow's going to have a say in Saturday's clash. I think he's think he's gonna get going and get raring to go for next week's VFL clash when he's dropped for the Collingwood game. So he'll have a ripper and winner plus. Sorry, Paddy. Love you, mate. Love you, Paddy. We actually really well. So shout out to Dowser.
Yeah.
The plus margin, I've got Carlton. Obviously, most weeks we pick Carlton, even if we're playing the best team in the modern era. But winner plus margin, I think I've got Carlton by 90 points.
Oh,
I don't want to look cocky. I think we've still got to get the job done, and we can't be complacent. Because obviously they took it. I guess they took it in a sense to Richmond on the weekend, which was a 38-point game. But in the form we're in, and the record up for grabs in terms of 50+ wins, I think we'll be pushing for that.
Yep, well said. Just to very quickly touch on the winner plus margin, I think like 90 points. Yes, it's very, it's very over the top, and like the mutual supporters would see it as a little bit like, whoa, 90 points as a prediction, but. We saw the way that we dominated Port Adelaide on the weekend, but now we're playing against West Coast, at Marvel.
Yeah.
We have a few injuries, but we still should be able to absolutely dominate their contest. So to touch on my best on ground point of difference, winner plus margin. So best on ground, I'm going Paddy Cripps.
Yep.
There's no chance for them to kind of stop Cripper. I don't think there's anyone in there who can stop Cripper. And I think it's very much a time for him, maybe with Chera not being there, him stepping up and actually, I mean, not like he hasn't stepped up. He's been the number one rated player in the competition, but I think just in terms of dominance, like I'm talking like a 35 and a 3-goal performance. That's what I'm talking about, and I think this is the time to do it because against a West Coast Eagles lineup, I think he can well and truly dominate this contest. So Paddy Cripps is my best on ground. Point of difference, I've gone Jack Silvani. A little bit of a different one. I know that the point of difference segment is a little bit of, it should, like, sometimes it's a player that comes in and he's going to be that point of difference. But Jack Silvani for mine is the point of difference because he's kind of filling the void for Harry Mackay. So that's why I as a point of difference. And I think it's going to be good because he could be, he's obviously going to play in that different role because I have Lewis Young coming in and him playing as the second ruck. So Jackson will be that sole forward. And it will be good to see him finally, once again, get an opportunity to be that second key forward. But Jackson Vanney, point of difference, winner plus margin, Carlton by 87 points. So a bit of a, of course, it's a big, I mean, imagine if we lose by 30 points to West Coast, but 87 points to Carlton is my winner plus margin. And I think there's no excuses. I think 87 from my end, but 90 points from your end. I think we are well and truly seeing the type of improvement that we've had since round 14. And I think there's no excuses this week. We have to go out there. We have to have a percentage boost. If we beat them by 108 points last time at Optus, there's no reason why we should absolutely dominate them at Marvel Stadium on a dry track. And just with Charlie Curnow out forward, I don't think they can handle him. So, of course, that is the last segment of the episode of the preview for Carlton v West Coast Eagles. But, Daffy Boy, before we wrap up the episode, is there anything else you want to touch on?
Just to all Carlton supporters, if you haven't got a ticket for next Friday's clash, I would recommend doing so because I know the general public tickets are sold out for the game, and I'd imagine is it our home game or their home game? Their home game. So so tickets are going to be very important. I've got mine, I know for sure. So it could be I think it will be a massive clash in terms of the AFL landscape, and it should be an exciting one. But this week it'll be funny to see a full Marvel Stadium against the Eagles because I actually looked at the tickets yesterday just for just to see how many tickets were sold, and it looks pretty sold out. So it looks pretty sold out because probably people thought that was going to be our next win 5 weeks ago. So, and we probably thought the same thing, to be fair. So I think it'll be a good crowd and get around them, and because they know they feed off that energy, and clearly they did last week.
Yeah, completely spot on. I know that last week that very much reminded me of the Sydney game last year. That was just that really good day at the football. And I know that we were both there only for half of it, and it was probably the better.
Loud. How loud was it?
Oh, but evenly, I mean, like we spoke about it on the review episode, but just the listening to the telecast the crowd was deafening. It was insane. And I mean, I think we're pretty much saying the exact same words as we said last time, but just it's very much Essendon like at Marvel Stadium versus North Melbourne when McDonald Tipperary kicked that goal. Just deafening. And it just gets everyone excited because you kind of want to see that every week. So yeah, I am a little bit surprised that it might be a sellout, but once again, it just shows that, I mean, up against a pretty shit opponent in West Coast, we still show up and we show up for every single week when we can. So, of course, I will be there, but Daffy Boy, you're not going to be there for this week.
Yes, this will be the first game I miss all year. So, I obviously would rather make it. It's probably really depends on the situation. I could make it for the second half or something like that, but I might give it a miss this week. But I'll definitely re-watching it and watching it on my TV or phone. So, just get the win, you bastards.
Yep, well said. I mean, I think it's kind of time for you to not watch a week for Carlton because I mean, you're like a free man or to watch them. So credit to you, mate. But so of course I'll be there. But I think I know for the review episode we'll have to touch base, I guess, and if we can try and get a review episode out. But right now it seems like we won't be able to get a review episode out. I don't know if you're going to do an episode, Daffy Boy, or maybe we'll just do one when of course I'm back. So of course I'm going away for the weekend. But we will just have to sort it out. So if there isn't a review episode to all the supporters out there, just make sure we're just letting you know that there might not be a review episode, but also you might be surprised and you might get a review episode. So it's pretty much just a wait and see, which is always good with the Carlton Football Club. It's kind of more with our performances. You have to wait and see how we show up. But of course, to all the subscribers out there, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and of course on all the podcast platforms where I'll make sure to try and share the love. I know that each and every week we try and do our part to try and get the episodes out. Try to do it as frequently as possible, but it's absolute pleasure speaking about the Carlton Football Club every single week with one of my good mates. I think it's absolute pleasure coming on here every single week. But as we said, make sure to like and subscribe on all the platforms we're on. And to you, Daffy Boy, and to all the blue baggers out there. Blue baggers!